Chapter 4. A New Client. Jade woke up the next morning snuggled under a down comforter at the Wilshire. She distinctly recalled her beach conversations with Rob and her one last attempt to get him upstairs at the hotel, which had apparently failed since she was alone under the covers. She dialed down for room service and ordered a huge pot of coffee and a green smoothie. She looked at the bedside table and saw the slip of paper with Rob's private line and a note about calling Jenny. Yes, it was all coming back to her now. She needed to get Rob set up as a client with Jenny. Well, that part should be easy, she thought. She wondered if Rob would remember everything they had discussed as she slipped out from under the covers. She grabbed her cell and texted Jenny, "Lunch today at Fern's? Alejandro will drive us." Jenny's text came back within a few minutes. "Okay, sounds fun." Jade took her time getting up and lounged lazily in the balcony of her room enjoying breakfast. She languished in the steam shower and recalled details from the night before. She found she wasn't so attracted to Rob anymore from the standpoint of a lover. She did, however, think that he might make for a great friend, if that was even possible. She knew how hard it was for men and women to just be friends, as she thought of the way he had hugged her goodbye. Meanwhile, Jenny was drinking a mango smoothie as she readied herself to meet Jade. On a whim, she dialed Chandra Rose. The young psychic answered the phone after a few rings. "I knew it was you," Chandra said, laughing. "Let me guess, you can't do lunch today," she said confidently. "You never cease to amaze me," Jenny said to her friend. "I'm going to lunch with Jade today at Fern's. She has something important to talk to me about. Can I meet you later for dinner?" "Of course, love. I envisioned us eating on the beach. How about you come by my place at 7 p.m.? "That sounds great. I'll meet you there," Jenny said, already planning the dinner menu in her mind. Chandra had been gifted by psychic visions since she was a young girl. She would often tell her mother about wispy figures of deceased Aunt Giselle or someone else in the family that she saw hovering over and around her mother's shoulders. Her mother forbade her to speak of this to anyone, as others outside the family, quote-unquote, wouldn't understand. What her mother hadn't told her was that Chandra had come from a long line of New Orleans hoodoo priestesses and seers from her Creole side of the family. Most of them had been chastised for their gifts and had gone into hiding to protect themselves from naysayers. They worked their magic secretly and called themselves the Sisters of the Green Rose as a testament to their healing abilities. Her mother had only shared these things with Chandra when she had told her mother right after high school that she wasn't going to college in order to pursue a career as an angel intuitive. She had already secretly taken the online class and obtained her certification. Chandra was a little more excited about this dinner with Jenny than usual. This typically meant that something new or unexpected was going to come up during that time. Chandra had come a long way since those early days working as an angel intuitive and psychic channel in a small shop in the French Quarter. She wanted more. A whole lot more. Late one fall, she quit her job, kissed her mother and father goodbye, and made way for the West Coast in the little Aston Martin that her father, the famous Creole chef Langdon Rose, had given her for her 21st birthday. She quickly found work in Malibu at a haute retreat center called Soul Step. Soul Step was known as a retreat for the nouveau riche, who needed to get away from it all. Chandra was an instant hit with owner Sky Monroe, Jade Monroe's older brother. It didn't take much for Chandra to win him over. At close to 6 feet tall, curves that kill, and her magical charm, Chandra wowed wherever she went. Sky was so taken in with her beauty and powerful, intense confidence that he had hired her on the spot. She, in return, had told him he would soon find love in unexpected places, as she had flipped over tarot cards just to show him she could really do the work. She didn't want to be taken in by someone just because they secretly lusted for her form. Sky told her she could live at Soul Step in exchange for working as the resident psychic and energy healer, and she had moved right in that day. In less than 6 months, she was earning a 6-figure salary and regular clients who would pay to see her, even when they weren't staying at the retreat. Life was good. Jenny, dressed in a green and white polka dot skirt and white halter top that had small strawberries all over it. She French braided her hair and put a little white rose behind her ear from the garden out back. She loved meeting Jade for lunch. After she had been to one of her evenings out, she knew that Jade had been trying to entice Rob, so she was intrigued to see how the night had gone. For what she lacked in her own love relationships, she lived vicariously through hearing about Jade's escapades. It wasn't long before Alejandro texted her to say he would be there in 15 minutes. He must have already picked up Jade at the hotel, she thought, as she grabbed her cell and tossed it into her bag. The big limo pulled into the estate and down the drive precisely 15 minutes later. She loved that Alejandro was always so punctual. He blew the horn at her and whistled out the window. Jenny laughed at him. He was always trying to make her feel sexy, even when she didn't feel that way. Too bad he's taken, Jenny thought, although a long-haired bisexual Latin lover wasn't really her type. Alejandro jumped out of the driver's side to greet Jenny as he opened the back door to reveal Jade inside. "Hello, love. Come on in," Jade said, wearing dark sunglasses. Jenny could tell she was nursing a hangover. "Just a second," she said to them both and hurried back into her studio, coming out a few minutes later with a small green velvet bag. "Here, carry these with you today," she told Jade, handing her the velvet bag with healing crystals inside. "They'll help with your hangover." The limo pulled out onto the Pacific Coast Highway, and Alejandro made good time as he headed towards Fern. He pulled into the parking lot, and both Jade and Jenny congratulated him on his traffic maneuvering skills. Jenny let Jade lead the way, leaving it to her to pick a table. Fern's was the perfect location for outdoor dining. It wasn't a big place, but what they lacked in size, they made up for in cozy and quaint. Every available indoor and outdoor space had been utilized to provide dining space that was comfortable and semi-private for each table. Jade managed to find the only open table with an ocean view and chose to sit facing the ocean, with her back to the small rose trellis that protected her from prying eyes. Jade reminded herself that she was there to talk to Jenny about Rob. "So," Jenny said, "how was your evening last night?" "I'm so glad you asked because it has to do with you," Jade said excitedly, but not too loudly since her head was still buzzing. "About me? Well, I'm not sure I want to know. I want to hear about you and Rob," Jenny said with a little disappointment. "I spent most of last night looking at him on YouTube to prepare for this moment, so don't let me down now." "Well, I'm going to have to let you down easy. Let me tell you, it wasn't for lack of trying," Jade said. "I definitely had him from the moment I stepped into the place. But, alas, it wasn't meant to be," Jade said with a fake accent. "We both got pretty drunk, and just when I thought he was going to make the move, he started talking about his feelings. I couldn't believe it, but he ended up making a lot of sense, and I realized I really wanted to talk to him. It was nice to have someone listen to me for a change, too. I think he's a really great guy, and I promised him something last night having to do with you." Jenny sat up straighter in her chair. The conversation was starting to make her feel tingly inside. She realized she had this feeling whenever something unexpected was about to happen. Chandra called it her psychic radar, and Jenny realized that this radar was starting to pick up on something. "Like what?" Jenny said, a little unsurely. "He needs help, Jen," Jade said softly. "He's in big trouble with his drinking. He actually told me straight up that he wanted to quit more than anything, but his lifestyle is making it so difficult for him. I could feel the sincerity in what he was saying, and I told him you could help him, Jenny. I don't know why, but it just felt right to say it. Please don't be mad at me." She paused. "Go on, I'm intrigued," said Jenny as she was getting intrigued. Her stomach had little butterflies flitting around inside, but she wasn't quite sure why. "I just think you can help him. I know you're booked and your client list is full, but I told him I would put in a word for him. You simply have to help him, Jenny. He's tried everything. I have this strange feeling that you're his last hope. So what do you say? Will you take him on as a client?" Jade said, stopping to take a breath. What came over Jenny next, she wasn't sure. Something compelled her to accept Rob as a client, sight unseen. She usually liked to meet with potential clients first to ensure that they would be a good fit for each other. To Jenny, Healing was a sacred relationship between the healer and the client. She was sure that she was divinely guided to help the people that she resonated strongly with. And Jade's description of Rob and her conversation with him had interested her. Something in her just wanted to help him, and she was feeling this very strongly now. "Okay, Jade, I'll call him and set up an appointment," she said, before she even realized she was saying it. "You're a doll," Jade said, reaching across the table to squeeze Jenny's hand. "I owe you one." Jenny smiled back as she secretly wondered what she had gotten herself into. Later that evening, back at the studio, Jenny thought about her conversation earlier with Jade. What had she been thinking to take on a new client, she said to herself. She knew good and well that her client list was already full, and yet something had compelled her to want to help him. She also knew that she needed to have a healthy balance between her career and her personal life. Years ago, when she first started, she had gotten severely off balance by taking on everyone that wanted to work with her. The demand was so high, once word of mouth got around that people were really being healed by her work, that it exploded. She soon realized she was going to get physically ill and burned out if she didn't balance things out. She took off several months to recuperate from the energetic strain she had placed on herself. When she came back, she had developed a very healthy set of boundaries and personal limits to keep herself steady and motivated for the long haul, and she vowed to never compromise herself that way again. But just this once, for whatever strange reason, she had decided to make an exception. Jenny cleared her mind about the whole matter by making a note in her planner to call Rob first thing Monday morning. In the meantime, she was looking forward to her beach dinner with Chandra. She dressed in layers, expecting fog to gather in the middle of their dinner and the temperature on the beach to fall. She put together a picnic basket of healthy goodies for their meal. She thought that would be more meaningful than stopping to pick up something that someone else had prepared. She hummed along with the songs on her Spotify Love playlist that she had created earlier. At 6:30 p.m., Jenny loaded up her new e-mini with a picnic basket full of delicious vegan treats. She had made butternut squash risotto and apple pie for dessert. She knew how much Chandra loved her baking. She had even tossed in some rose heart kombucha that she had made with her own hands. She was pretty proud of how it turned out and was anxious for Chandra to try it, knowing her love of all things kombucha. She made her way up the drive from the estate and turned left towards the small beach near Stoll Step. Being later in the summer, the sun was low in the sky, but she figured she would make it to the beach in time to see the sunset. She realized what a great weekend she was having and felt grateful that she had taken time off before a heavy week of client appointments that would start again tomorrow. She reached the beach parking area and slid the little Mini easily into a parking spot. As she looked down to the sand, she could see Chandra was already there and lighting a small wood fire. She fully expected some singing and a round of fire talk to make the evening special. Chandra loved to sing what she called her power songs when the moon was still full in the sky. She said it made her feel more in tune with her helping spirits. Pulling the basket out of the back seat, Jenny made her way down to the beach. She hugged Chandra tightly. "It's so good to see you. This is going to be an amazing evening. I have all your favorite treats," Jenny said as she furled out a blanket onto the sand. "Well, I know I have some interesting things to tell you. I wasn't sure until I saw you just now, but I have some pretty exciting news for you," Chandra said, looking at Jenny just above her head. "Is it my spirit guides again?" Jenny asked uncertainly. "You just wait until after we eat, and then I'll spill everything. I want you to be nice and relaxed when you hear this. You're going to be so excited." Jenny tried to put this out of her mind as she unpacked the picnic basket. Last time Chandra had exciting news for Jenny, it had meant a 3-month trip to Constantinople to study ancient healing arts. It really had been one of the best times of her life. She had learned to trust Chandra's judgment and had told her many times that she didn't want to hear any news that might be negative or fearful. "Of course not, dear," Chandra had said, swearing she would never do anything to hurt Jenny. They sat quietly on the sand, eating the risotto and drinking the rose heart kombucha. "Jenny, you've outdone yourself this time. This kombucha is to die for. You really need to bottle this and start selling it. Have you ever thought to let Ferns have a few bottles to sell?" "You should, you know. It may be a new calling for you, kombucha queen," Chandra said with a flourish of her hand. as they cut into the pie and were sopping up the last bit of the juicy tart filling. Jenny asked Chandra to tell her this important news. She really was starting to get excited about whatever it was. Okay, but promise me that you won't be mad at me. Your guys are really wanting me to tell you this, and they say it's for your own good. It's nothing negative, but it's pretty substantial and major life-changing, Chandra said, trying to prepare Jenny for the jolt of information she was about to deliver. All right, I'm ready. Please tell me before I explode, Jenny said, putting her heart-shaped pie plate down on the blanket. I'm all ears. Well, your guides are saying that a new karmic relationship is on the horizon. They want you to sit up and take notice because this one is going to take you to the brink of anything you have ever known, Chandra said excitedly. I'm so happy for you, Jenny. This is what we've been waiting for, a new love coming into your life. I can't wait to see how it unfolds. Jenny didn't really know what a karmic relationship was. I can't get excited yet, said Jenny. First you have to explain what a karmic relationship is, she said quizzically. She was used to Chandra talking about her spirit guides, but this was something entirely different. Karmic relationship is when you meet someone you have a spark with, a connection, Chandra explained. You'll feel a spark of recognition within your being and a haunting sense of familiarity like you've come home again. Wow, if that's so, then I can't wait, Jenny said hopefully. I'm definitely ready for love. The rest of the evening was magical as always, with Chandra breaking out in her favorite fire circle songs and Jenny humming along. They lit a white sage bundle over the fire, and Chandra thanked the helping spirits for all her good fortune since the last full moon. Jenny said a silent prayer to God, releasing any feelings of insecurity about bringing new love into her life. I'm enough just as I am, she said silently to whoever was listening up in the cosmos. Chapter 5. A haunting sense of familiarity. It was early Monday morning, and Jenny awoke from a deep sleep. She was getting mentally prepared for the clients she was going to see today, and she started her day as usual with yoga on the veranda, followed by meditation, and then a mug of warm lemon and honey water. Her grandmother had made this simple treat for her every morning when she was a teenager. The tart, combined with the thick sweetness of the honey, made her think back to those days all over again. She had been a happy teenager, unconcerned about anything except finishing high school so she could go to college. She hadn't had any steady love relationships in high school, and her first real boyfriend hadn't shown up until the end of her senior year at Lincoln County High School. Lincoln County was a small school on the Oregon coast. Jenny enjoyed living there, although the choices for love interests and the like were as little as the city parameters themselves. Jenny had known everyone in her class since kindergarten, except for the few kids whose parents thought it would be cool to relocate to a small town. She had met her first boyfriend on a senior day outing to Portland, and it was love at first sight. His name was Jackson, and he had been attracted to the slight blonde girl the moment she had stepped off the rented tour bus. Jenny had noticed him immediately, standing at the bus station wearing a black leather jacket and blue jeans, straight red hair down to his shoulders. It was the intensity of his hazel-eyed stare that had beguiled her, and it didn't hurt that he had a sweet, sensitive sigh that came out when he spoke to her. He was 3 years her senior and went to Portland U, where he was majoring in ancient architecture. The first time they made love was at Boiler Bay on the coast in the back of his little VW. She had known at that moment that she would never marry him, although they continued to date for several months. Why she had chosen to release him to the many girls she knew would be waiting in the wings for his rebound, she didn't know. She just knew that she couldn't be with a man who never gave them a chance to finish together. She knew lovemaking was innate and got better with practice, but this didn't change her mind. Jenny's cell tweeted a notification and forced her out of her daydream. She picked up her phone to see the reminder she had set for herself the day before. Call Rob Strom. She decided she better do that now before she got too busy. Her first client was coming at 10 a.m. and she still needed to get ready and prepare her healing space. She dialed Rob's number, and as she waited, a nervous feeling came over her. Why? She wasn't sure. She had worked with many famous people before, and that had never been an issue. Just when Jenny was considering hanging up, the line answered. "This is Rob," he said sleepily. Her voice caught in her throat. "Hello, is this Rob Strom?" She felt so silly. Of course it was. "Is this a private number? Who's calling, please?" he said, getting tense. "This is Jenny Heathcliff. Jade Monroe asked me to phone you about setting up an appointment." She paused, waiting for him to catch up. On the other end of the line, Rob was laying naked in bed with Sarah from accounting. They had met at Whole Foods in the wine and beer section, and after 10 minutes of conversation and innuendo, she had followed him back to his bungalow in her Jag. But something about the woman on the other end of the phone had captured Rob's attention. It was her voice. It sounded so oddly familiar, but he couldn't place it. He just knew. But he couldn't place how. He just knew. He just did. Sure, this isn't really a good time, though," he said, turning to look at Sarah, who had her hand on his hip. "Can you come in next Thursday, August 18th at 2 p.m., Jenny asked. Rob thought for a moment and then, still groggy from sleep, said, "Sure, that sounds good. I'll be out of town until next Tuesday, but Thursday will work." "Okay, I'll put you down. I'll text you a link to my website. There's some forms you need to fill out, and my address is there, too." "Okay, see you then. Take care," he said, hanging up. "Take care," Jenny said to the empty phone line. Carol was her first client, and they had been working together for several months. Carol was deathly afraid of men after having been attacked outside a restaurant by a secret admirer who had followed her one night. Jenny was helping the woman overcome the trauma of that night and how to work with the recurring nightmares she was having. Carol had made significant progress in a short period, and Jenny attributed it to the crystal Reiki grid she had set up for Carol's healing, as well as their in-person appointments that focused on clearing the chakras, relaxation therapy, and deep conversation. Jenny was enchanted with angelic Reiki. Her client said the treatment felt like a beautiful, glowing radiance flowing through and around them. From her direct experience, she knew that Reiki treats the whole person, including body, emotions, mind, and spirit, and creates many beneficial effects, including relaxation and feelings of peace, security, and well-being. She liked it, too, because it worked with all other medical or therapeutic techniques, so her clients could still seek out conventional treatment if they desired. While Jenny was readying herself for a busy day, Rob was saying goodbye to Sarah and taking a long, hot shower. He hummed along to the radio and thought to the week ahead. He would be meeting the tour bus in a couple of hours and still had to pack. He found the water soothing, and his mind drifted back to Jade. "I know this girl," his mind spoke to him again. He saw himself seated on a throne with a lady at his feet. "You are my king," he heard in his mind as the warm water took him back. "You are my king, and I am your queen. Together we are unstoppable." The phone ringing brought him back to reality, but not before he recognized that the voice of the queen in his vision was Jade's. He opened the steamy shower door and grabbed his cell. It was his agent, Murray, calling to ask if he was ready. "Almost. Give me a break, man. I had a hard night," he said into the phone. "I bet," Murray said, knowing his client all too well. "Don't worry, I'll be at the bus just like we said," he said, hanging up. Murray did know him all too well. It was so like Rob to save everything until the last minute. Rob pulled on some leggings, a vintage Dio t-shirt, and high-top Converse. His long hair mussed up just so, and he was ready to roll. Fans were always giving him stuff, and he splashed on some Bond 007 cologne that sparkled, quote-unquote, "your companion if you wanna," as it said on the note wrapped around it, had thrown up on stage in Philly. He figured he was ready for pretty much anything now as he stuffed clothes and toiletries into his duffel bag. Anything that he forgot he could pick up on the road. He considered tossing in a bottle of Stoli, but decided he would feel better if he had a drink right now instead. In his anxiety to get ready, he forgot all about the fact that his first appointment next week was to help with his drinking. None of this came into his mental awareness as he poured himself a shot and downed it like a dash of cold water. In his mind, he was picturing the stage, the music, and his voice filling the music hall like the roar of an ancient god, for it was only when he was on stage that he genuinely felt himself. He drank a little more than expected and realized there was no way he could drive to the bus now. He phoned his best friend Steele to ask for a ride. 20 minutes later, and Steele's Lamborghini pulled up in the circular drive. Rob walked slowly, his head buzzing, but with a sense of euphoria that he always felt when he was high. He dropped his bag in the trunk of the stealth beast and maneuvered himself into the passenger seat. What the car lacked in comfort, it made up for in the speed he would need to make it in time before the bus left without him. It had happened before. Murray had gotten fed up with Rob's ways and had instructed the driver to no longer wait for the unpredictable singer. If he missed the bus, then he had to find his own transportation to meet it at its next stop. He didn't want to be late, and he certainly didn't want to make his own way to Phoenix. The bus would be waiting behind the In-N-Out Burger on Sunset and Highland. It was a short drive, but there were only 30 minutes to get there, and in midday traffic he was cutting it close. Steele navigated the Lamborghini through the tight Hollywood Hills streets as Rob sat quietly with his eyes closed, thinking about the upcoming tour. Steele was Rob's best friend and the singer for the metal band Skunk Spray. Rob and Steele had met at a battle of the bands in Raw Deal's early days and had become instant friends after Steele had saved Rob from the upset mother of an overzealous young girl. The girl had gone backstage to get a picture with the band at Rob's insistence after seeing her raise her top to him during his only ballad, Make Me. The mother had seen her daughter post a picture on Facebook of herself naked with the then 19-year-old Rob locked in her embrace and had gone hell-bent to the Cherry Bomb Theater to fetch her daughter. Steele, who had been taking a break in the back room, had seen the raging mother coming from the other end of the hallway and asking who the heck Rob was. Steele had taken the mother by the hand and led her outside to cool off while simultaneously telling his bassist to warn the unsuspecting couple. It had worked. The woman had cooled down while the girl got herself together enough to meet her mom out back, and Rob had ducked out the front to meet Steele. It was laughable to Rob at the time, but he soon realized that his love for beautiful women could get dangerous. Now he made sure that his assistant Conrad screened any female companions before they made their way backstage. No more underage shenanigans for him. He had never forgotten Steele for helping him, even when he didn't really have to. Later, they had both found out they had been in the same boys' school together back in Wales, and that had sealed their friendship. He could always count on Steele to get him out of anything. Rob opened his eyes as Steele eased the car into the In-N-Out parking lot. He had made it with 10 minutes to spare, thanks to his ability to intuitively figure out which traffic lanes were moving the fastest. The bus was waiting with its underbelly doors propped open to accept the myriad bags, guitar cases, and boxes of food and booze that the band typically took on tour. The stagehands, Zach and Ronnie, were loading up stage equipment and lighting while the band members congregated around their cars, saying goodbye to their partners or latest one-night stands. There was Dreamer, the lead guitarist, who was the only married member of the band. He and his partner Kitty had been together since high school and just had eyes for each other. McGuire, the bassist, and Vince, the drummer, didn't believe in long-term relationships, so they usually found a partner that only seemed to last the life of the current tour they were on. Rob, as the lead singer and frontman of the band, felt he should be some sort of role model for the others in their integrity. He wanted them to be seen as serious musicians and not partiers who couldn't handle the business. However, his addictions to booze and wayward women hadn't quite allowed him to project the type of image he had envisioned in his head. Maybe this girl Jenny could help him, he thought, as he pulled his bag from the trunk of the Lamborghini, passing it to a waiting Zach. That thought was the last one he had about his sobriety before stepping onto the bus. From there, he was pulled straight in again to the lifestyle that kept holding him back. 4 shows in 7 nights. It was possible to keep up this pace for a short while, but one must have some sort of motivation and assistance to keep it up for extended periods of time. Rob's motivation was to drink and party before, during, and after a show so he could get his mind off things. Nothing affected his fantastic voice, and if anything, the drinking only seemed to make his voice better, he thought, as he downed a round of whiskey with the guys on the bus. Someone shot a quick photo of the group and posted it on Instagram. Not everyone in the band held Rob's vision of Raw Deal as a band focused on the business of music, and they thought it was fun to post these behind-the-scenes pictures of themselves. Vince especially liked to taunt the press with outlandish photos of himself for the publicity. It didn't hurt that the fans loved it and had increased their popularity with the younger crowds. The first stop was Phoenix later in the day with a show at 9 p.m. Rob decided to lay down and take a nap so he could carry on all night if needed. Meanwhile, Murray, Jade, and everyone else following Raw Deal's Instagram feed looked at the latest post of 4 guys tossing back whiskey shots at 10 a.m. and knew that this was another wild ride tour. Jade, who was home by the pool, just looked intensely at the Instagram picture on her cell, shook her head, and silently wished her new friend Rob well on his journey. Chapter 6. Meeting Logan. It's later in the week, and Jenny is tired from all the clients she's seen since Monday. Over the years, she's learned the hard way how to balance her energy. Sitting by the pool, she thought back to when she first started doing energy healing work. She had been so anxious to help as many people as possible that she forgot to take good care of herself. She worked back-to-back clients from early morning to evening, 6 days a week, and after about 6 months of this, she noticed something changing in herself. She couldn't concentrate anymore. She needed extra caffeine to get going in the morning, and she started to drink a small glass of wine at dinner to help her wind down and relax. This alone was so against her nature that she began to sit up and take notice. After all, she was treating alcoholic clients. She couldn't very well join them in their inebriety. The next clue came when she wasn't able to get out of bed on the weekends. Her body ached terribly and she felt exhausted. She hadn't met Chandra yet. If she had, the young psychic would have set her straight immediately, telling her that her precious energy was being drained because she didn't clear and balance it. Instead, it took a trip to a local shaman who had been recommended to her by her friend Amelia. Jesse worked at the vegan market and was from Peru, growing up in the rainforest there. He was trained in indigenous medicine and he knew power loss when he saw it. He worked with private clients, at his real job as he called it, after his shift at the market. Jenny had never been to a shaman before, but the young man's gentle nature and soft-spoken voice made her feel right at ease. Laying back on a soft rug in his studio, she would close her eyes as Jessie rattled and drummed around her physical body. And with Jessie's guidance in her mind, she traveled into the rainforest to meet her power animal, who filled her etheric body up with much-needed energy and vitality. As Jessie explained it to her, all her healing work was helping her clients, but Jenny was also absorbing into her energy field, all the pains, sorrows, and negative energy that they brought with them into her healing room. If she was to continue her business for the long term, she had to learn how to shield, clear, and balance her energy and her healing space after each client. Jessie taught her how to use a little rattle he made for her to clear her energy. Before and after each appointment, she needed to rattle around herself in her healing space, and this would break up any negative energy. She then needed to visualize herself and her area filled up entirely with white and gold light that came down from the heavens. This would shield her from attracting anything that could negatively impact her. As soon as she started following this guidance, she noticed an immediate difference in how she felt. She also saw that her clients began to comment on how peaceful her healing space felt to them. She knew then that she needed to explore this energy medicine work further. Jesse moved back to Peru to care for his aging number, but not before giving Jenny some sage advice and his private cell number.
"Call me if you need me," he had said at their last appointment, "but you won't."
Jesse left, and a week later, Jenny had met Chandra. The young psychic brought a whole new level of learning about energy to Jenny, so much so that it scared her at times. As she faded back in from her daydream, Jenny realized she hadn't been out all week. A lovely lunch at Fern's should pick me up, she thought to herself. Not having any more clients until early next week, she decided that her weekend could get started now. She pulled back her long blonde hair into a loose bun and eased out of her soft terry robe and into the shallow end of the infinity pool. The water was warmed just so, and she sunk into a calm state of well-being. Her life was good, she thought. However, she didn't want to be alone forever. She had made it clear to the universe that she wanted someone to spend her life with. She hadn't had a serious relationship since her breakup with Morgan 5 years ago. She was right out of college and had met Morgan at a counseling workshop, something she had to take as continuing education for her psych degree. Jenny had always been slight of build and somewhat fairy-like in her appearance. At 5'5", she was average height for most women, but she always stood out in a crowd as being pixie-like. Morgan, on the other hand, was 6'5" and just coming off a basketball scholarship. He was attending the workshop to appease his professor in his last year of study to get his sports counseling degree. Jenny was immediately drawn to Morgan, and she felt a sense of safety when he was around. They ended up sitting next to each other for the 3-day workshop and would grab coffee or a quick lunch each day when it was over. Their relationship developed quickly and almost by accident when one day after lunch, Morgan leaned over to kiss Jenny quite unexpectedly. The ensuing passion led them to Tate's by the Sea Motel for the weekend, and they didn't emerge from their room until 3 days later. Their relationship ended almost as suddenly as it had started when a year later Morgan decided to move to Switzerland to counsel downhill skiers. Jenny had no urge to move overseas, and they had decided to amicably end their union with one last weekend at Tate's. During bouts of lovemaking and sunning by the pool, Jenny realized she had never indeed been in love with Morgan. It was more a sense of feeling genuinely cared for and appreciated. She confessed to them after a particularly amorous round of foreplay, and he agreed. They would always be friends and lovers if she wanted, but their relationship didn't seem to be built for the long term. Several days later, she had seen him off at LAX airport with a brief kiss and well wishes. He would send her pictures often, but over the years the communication had dropped off, and she figured he had found someone else. Jenny, on the other hand, got immersed in her work and forgot about finding the love of her life. But she was ready now. At 30 years old, she was feeling like she should have more in the relationship department than a date with her vibrator every Tuesday and Saturday. She wanted more, someone to share her life with, and someone to cook breakfast for her in the mornings. She wanted to find her soulmate. She eased slowly out of the water and felt the warmth quickly shift to a coolness as her body was exposed to the early morning air. She went inside to shower and get dressed for lunch at Fern's. She decided to be chic and wore the Manish Aurora outfit that Jade had gotten her for her birthday. It was a fun, colorful ensemble that had made her feel young and carefree. She always appreciated Jade's ability to bring out the best in her. She was determined to have fun this weekend, and this lunch would be the start of it. Jenny's car was in the shop, and she hadn't counted on that. She was making her weekend plans. She needed to figure out how she was going to get to Fern's. She contemplated calling on Alejandro, but didn't feel right about it. She considered delivery, but that defeated the point of getting out of the house. She finally settled on calling an Uber and waited the 15 minutes it would take them to get there. The Uber arrived right on time, and Jenny slid into the back seat of the sedan. The driver, Mark, was slick and stylish, but not her type. They arrived at Fern's in 30 minutes, a record considering the amount of traffic on the road. Jenny paid Mark and tipped him a little extra for the funny comments and jokes he made along the way about the traffic. Fern's was busy, as usual, but Jenny had called ahead and asked them to save a small outside table for her. Being that she was one of their best customers, they had cheerfully agreed, and she was seated quite quickly and was looking out towards the ocean while sipping a mint julep lemonade. As she studied the menu, she heard the crowd over her shoulder and was thankful for the quiet table. No sooner had she thought this when Russell, her waiter, came up and asked her for a favor. "Hey, Jenny, I've got a huge favor. There's this guy, he's by himself, and he really wants to sit outside. We're completely full in here. Would you mind terribly if I sat him with you? He seems harmless," Russell said, glancing back over his shoulder towards the door. "Oh, sure, just this once," Jenny said. "I owe you one for saving me this table anyway, so sure, bring him out." "Thanks, Jenny," Russell said, running off as she spoke. He returned a few minutes later with an armful of plated lunches and a handsome light-haired man. "I hope you don't mind," the light-haired stranger said, smiling. "Not at all," Jenny said, smiling. Something about him put her immediately at ease. "Please join me." "I'll be back to get your orders in a few minutes," Russell said, walking off to deliver the plates that were slowly burning into his arm. "My name's Logan," the stranger said, holding out his hand politely. "I'm Jenny," she said, shaking his hand and noticing the confident yet gentle feeling of his hand in hers. "Have you been here before?" she asked, knowing she had never seen him around. She would have definitely noticed. "No, I'm in town for a meeting, and we took a break for lunch. I like to get away and clear my head, and someone mentioned this place. I'm glad I took their advice," he said, smiling at her with a glint in his deep green eyes. "It's crowded. Yeah, it seems pretty peaceful, and looks like you got one of the best tables," he said, gazing out towards the ocean. "Yes, I have connections," she said. He made her feel at ease, and she relaxed into her chair. Russell reappeared with 2 glasses of filtered water and placed them down on the table. "Do you both know what you want?" he said, ready to make a mental note of their order, as was his talent to remember even the most detailed requests. "Ladies first," Logan said, looking at Jenny. "I'll have the raw veggie wrap and an orange cucumber juice," she said. She didn't let on that it was her default Fern's lunch order pretty much every time she ate there. She liked the orderliness of having some staples, so she didn't have to think too much about things when she was decompressing. "And for you, sir?" Russell asked Logan. "Well, if it's good enough for the lady, then I'll try it," Logan said, smiling at Jenny. She was beginning to feel a softness in her heart for this gentle stranger. "So what kind of business are you in?" Jenny asked politely. "Oh, I'm a technology analyst for iBeam. It's a new software company. We're looking at bringing on some investors, so I'm out here to meet with some guys who are interested in what we have to offer. How about you?" he asked Jenny. "I don't know much about technology. It's all I can do to make my iPhone work as I want. I'm terrible with gadgets. But seriously, I'm a psychologist and energy healer," she said proudly. Logan sat up at the mention of energy healing. While his English-born father had pushed him towards going to school to get into the technology business, it was his Native American mother's wish that he follow in his grandfather's footsteps and become a healer. He struggled each day with the monotony and boredom of living a white-collar life and secretly longed for the feel of earth under his feet. On weekends, he would drive the 175 miles or so from San Diego to the Wolf Mountain Sanctuary in Lucerne Valley, just to be out in nature and around the energy of the wolves there. He dreamed of doing healing work with animals and had even considered taking some classes. "Wow, cool. Tell me more about the energy healing," he said, his green eyes staring into hers. "Well, it just found me by accident, really," she said. "I had my psychology degree, and then I met someone by chance who brought up the idea, and it intrigued me, so I decided to pursue it further." "Kind of like how we just met by chance," he said, feeling good in the presence of this girl. "Right, kind of like that," she said, smiling at him and looking straight into his eyes. She could feel a heat building up in her lower body, and she liked it. He asked her to explain more, and she talked about how the healing power of Reiki and crystals had helped so many of her clients. "The energy all comes out through the hands. At least that's where I feel the magic happening anyway," she said, holding up her hands, turning them over several times. Just then their lunch appeared. They ate, and in between bites of veggie wrap, talked about the things that brought them joy, like walks with wolves and swims in the ocean. Soon Russell brought their tickets and cleared the plates away. "I'm having a wonderful time," Jenny said. "I'm so glad you joined me. Maybe there are no such things as coincidences," she said. "I'm beginning to think not," Logan said. "Hey, I've got to get back to my meetings, but I would love to continue our conversation another time. Let's trade numbers if that's okay with you," he said hesitantly. "I'm swamped, but maybe we could catch up again later this week." "Sure, that sounds great. I'm really busy too with clients all week, but I would love to talk more. Here's my number," she said, pulling out a pen to write it down on the back of a Fern's unbleached paper napkin. "And mine," he said, doing the same as he tore the napkin in half, saving her number safely in his pocket and writing his on the opposite half. "Take care, Jenny. It was really great meeting you." "You too," she said as he stood up to leave. She stood too, and an awkward moment passed between them as she wanted to reach out to hug him but thought better of it. He reached his hand out to shake hers, and when their palms touched, an electricity passed between them like the feeling of a thunderstorm coming on a hot summer afternoon. She watched him walk away and sat back down to finish her juice. She smiled to herself and held her palm over her heart momentarily, feeling a wave of sadness pass over her, and then it was gone. Her thoughts brought her back to her last conversation with Chandra. Could Logan be the karmic relationship that Chandra had told her about? She needed to talk to her more about this. She needed to understand more about what a karmic relationship was. She almost forgot that she needed an Uber to get home. She set up the appointment in the Uber app on her phone and decided to wait out front in the courtyard. She checked her appointment calendar for the coming week while she was waiting, and as she scrolled through the list of clients, she saw his name come up. Her first appointment with Rob was this Thursday.